whether, since he is advised by aught to change the course, he's full of alteration and self-reproving, bring his constant pleasure.
Our sister's man is certainly miscarried.
'Tis to be doubted, madame.
Now, sweet lord, you know the goodness I intend upon you. Tell me, but truly, but then speak the truth. Do you not love my sister?
In honored love.
But have you never found my brother's way to the forfended place?
That thought abuses you.
I am doubtful that you have been conjunct and bosomed with her as far as we call hers.
No, by mine honor, madam.
I never shall endure her. Dear my lord, be not familiar with her.
Fear me not. She and the Duke her husband.
I had rather lose the battle than that sister should loosen him and me.
Our very loving sister, well be met, sir, that I hear the king is come to his daughter, with others whom the rigor of our state are forced to cry out, where I could not be honest, and never yet there was valiant. For this business it touches us as French invades our land, not boasts the king with others whom I fear, most thus the envy causes make oppose.
Sir, you speak nobly.
Why is this reasoned?
Combined together against the enemy, for these domestic and particular broils are not the question here.
Let's then determine with at the agent of war honor proceeding.
Okay, so just
I
to
shall
pause for a second. Sorry to interrupt you guys. So we find out that Oswald is dead. Something else between Edmund and Regan. Regan asks him, he says, but have you never found my brother's way to the forfended place? Do you know what what she's referring to? What is she asking Edmund? Now, her brother, meaning Albany, her brother-in-law. And what do you think is the forfended place? That's right. And in classic Edmund style, he sort of evades the question and says that thought abuses you, like it's beneath you. Okay. She also says, I never shall endure her, dear my lord. Be not familiar with her. What does it mean if you're not going to endure someone? I never shall have her as a rival. What does that imply to you?
Not going to tolerate her.
Right. So that's interesting to see how she's not going to tolerate Goneril's relationship with Edmund. So interesting to see that that is the focus here. And then it's much later on line 29 when Goneril states that they're going to actually join their forces together against a common enemy. Okay, so just it shows what was once at the forethought, which would have been taking or getting rid of Lear and taking his power. Now, what is the most or like the number one thing on Regan and Goneril's mind is Edmund. Okay, sorry, let's continue on.
I shall attend you presently at your tent.
Sister, you'll go with us?
No.
'Tis most convenient. Pray go with us.
Oh ho, I know the riddle. I will go.
If ever your grace had speech with man so poor, hear me one word.
I'll overtake you. Speak.
Before you fight the battle, open this letter. If you have victory, let the trumpet sound for him that brought it. Wretched though I seem, I can produce a champion that will prove what is avouched there. If you miscarry, your business of the world has so an end, and machination ceases. Fortune loves you.
Stay till I have read the letter.
I was forbidden. When time shall serve, let but the herald cry, and I'll appear again.
Why fare thee well, I will overlook thy paper.
The enemies in view, draw up your powers. Here is the guess of their true strength and forces. My diligent discovery, but your haste, is now urged on you.
We will greet the time.
To both these sisters I have sworn my love, each jealous of the other, as the stung are of the adder. Which of them shall I take? Both? One or neither? Neither can be enjoyed if both remain alive. To take the widow? Exasperates, makes mad her sister Goneril. And hardly shall I carry out my side, her husband being alive. Now then, will use his continence for the battle, which, being done, let her who would be rid of him devise his speedy taking off. As for the mercy which he intends to Lear and to Cordelia, the battle done, and they within our power, shall never see his pardon. For my state stands on me to defend, not to debate.
Excellent. So, something interesting. I'm assuming that Edmund is not on stage, or at least not hearing, when Edgar, who's still Tom O'Bedlam, but not quite as naked, that when he appeals to Albany and says, read this letter, I'm assuming that Edmund probably doesn't see this interaction because I feel like he would do something to intercede it. So what's interesting is that Goneril has decided that she's going to leave with Regan because she says, I know the riddle. So she says, I can see what you are thinking. Goneril thinks that Regan does not want to lose sight of her. They're both keeping a close eye on each other. And because they're not really concerned about Lear or this battle, they're more concerned with Edmund. They kind of take off to entertain each other. After Albany leaves and Edmund is left on stage, he talks about how hard it is to have two women be in love with you. And essentially he's like, well, what am I going to do? They're both jealous. He uses the idea of the, oh, relatable, is it? Well, good for you. The idea of one stung, the adder, snakes. Which one shall I take? Both, one, neither. How can I enjoy one if the other one remains alive? I think that in some level, he kind of prefers Goneril a little bit more, but he's like, what am I going to do about her husband being alive? Well, I'll have to figure that out later, but what I will say is this. The mercy that Albany intends to give Lear and Cordelia, he will not allow it. Okay. So he is foreshadowing his very direct involvement in their deaths, that they will never see his pardon. I think the idea is that they're going to kill Albany, and therefore Edmund thinks that he is going to rise to the top of the power and he'll be able to determine this. Okay. So pretty intense, dramatic feelings. Okay, Gloucester shelters under a tree whilst the battle is fought. Cordelia's army is defeated.
Here, Father, take the shadow of this tree for your good host. Pray that the right may thrive. If ever I return to you again, I'll bring you comfort. Away, old man. Give me thy hand. Away. King Lear has lost. He and his daughter taken. Give me thy hand. Come on. What? What? In ill thoughts again? Men must endure their going hence, even as they're coming hither. Ripeness is all. Come on.
Okay, great. So it doesn't happen so fast, but Edgar is telling his father to stay close to him, to just rest under. You have to imagine there's obviously more fighting in between, but we're not going to orchestrate that because that would be wasted by myself here. But there is a battle. And Cordelia, of course, loses. And Edgar says, okay, we have to get you out of here. Lear has lost. His daughter is taken. Come on. And Gloucester is kind of going back into that maybe dark state of mind that he has by saying, a man may rot even here. Is he wishing for death at this moment? And Edgar sullenly says, ill thoughts again, you have to deal. Okay. We have to just make it through. So is this a stoic acceptance of his fate? Is he pessimistically resigned to what's going to happen? It's hard to say. I think at some level he's feeling defeated, but it doesn't matter about Lear right now. What is the one goal that Gloucester has before he dies? If he could, yes, please. What is the one thing he wants to change?
Like to say sorry to Edgar.
Absolutely. He needs to have that moment. So that's still got to happen. Okay. Act 5, Scene 3, this is it. So a lot of stuff happens very quickly, okay? It's kind of like going back to Romeo and Juliet in the last act where everything happens too fast, but none of the messages get through. That's kind of the same thing here. So Lear and Cordelia are taken to prison. Edmund gives instructions to an officer. Albany denounces Edmund and issues a challenge. Regan is taken ill. Suspicious. Edgar comes to confront his brother. They fight and Edmund is wounded. Goneril is mad with grief and rushes out to kill herself. Edgar tells of Gloucester's death. When Edmund sees the bodies of the two sisters, he tries to rescue Cordelia. Lear carries in her body. He grieves, then dies himself. And Edgar speaks the play's last words. So in true Shakespearean tragic form, everyone dies. Okay, so buckle up. We're in for it.
Some officers take them away, good guard, until their greater pleasures first be known, that to our censure them.
We're not the first who, with best meaning, have incurred the worst. For the oppressed king, I'm cast down. Myself would else outfrown false fortune's frown. Shall we not see these daughters and these sisters?
No, 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 no. Come, let's away to prison. We two alone will sing like birds in the cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I'll kneel down and ask of thee forgiveness. So we'll live and pray and sing and tell old tales and laugh at gilded butterflies and hear poor rogues talk of court news. And we'll talk with them too. Who loses and who wins, who's in, who's out, and take upon the mystery of things as if we were God's spies, and we'll wear out. In a walled prison, packs and sects of great ones that ebb and flow by the moon.
Take them away.
Upon such sacrifices, my Cordelia, the gods themselves throw incense. Have I caught thee? He that parts us shall bring a brand from heaven, and fire us hence like foxes. Wipe thine eyes. The good years shall devour them, flesh and fell. Ere they shall make us weep, we'll see 'em starved first. Come.
Okay, so for Cordelia, she's feeling very desperate at this moment. Like this is her sisters, essentially, that are putting her in prison. And she knows because this is an act of treason against England that she's going to be killed. She's very well aware of this. And what is Lear's reaction? Like, no, 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 come away, or come, let's away to prison. And we'll sing like two birds in the cage. So for him, it's so heartbreaking to me because this is what he wanted from the beginning. Like, yes, he went about everything terribly, but this is what he wants. And he wants to replay that moment in his mind where she asks for a blessing, he kneels down and asks for her forgiveness. Yes, he wants to spend the rest of his life with his daughter. That's what he wanted. He wanted Cordelia to take care of him as he grew old. And he says, we'll play, we'll talk, we'll talk about who's in and who's out, meeting with the king, out with the king. And we'll just have like a wonderful time together. We're going to be okay. And she obviously doesn't feel the way, but he does say again that we're going back to the dragon and that wrath. And he says, he that parts us shall bring a brand from heaven and fire us hence like foxes. So anyone who like tries to separate us, like no earthly power will be able to do that. So even though Lear is old and he's, moments of lucidity, he seems to have recovered from the madness, he's not going to let anybody get in his way of being with his daughter anymore. Okay, so they leave and it's back to Edmund.
Come hither, captain, hark. Take thou this note. Go follow them to prison. One step I had advanced thee, if thou dost, as this noble instructs thee, thou dost make thy way to noble fortunes. Know thou this, that men are as the time is, to be tender-minded does not become a sword. Thy great employment will not bear question. Either say thou'lt do it, or thrive by other means.
I do it, my lord.
About it, and right happy when thou'st done. Mark, I say instantly, and carry it so, as I have set it down.
I can't walk hard nor eat dried oats. If it be man's work, I do it.
Okay, so he's leaving. Now, when he gives this officer this paper, okay, it says, take thou this note. And there's a very sinister authority in Edmund that's emerging. Now, what you don't know is that this note is actually a death warrant for Lear and Cordelia. And he tells the officer, like, listen, are you man enough to do what needs to get done? And he mentions that there's going to be a monetary reward. And the officer says, like, if it's man's work, I'll do it. Okay? So we go from these tensions about Lear and Cordelia's impending doom, and now we're going to the drama between Edmund, Albany, Goneril, and Regan. So we know that this is after the battle, and let's kind of find out. There's tensions building between Albany. I'll just prepare you for it. He sees that Edmund is acting out of his place, that he's trying to make big decisions, and he doesn't have the power to do so. But it doesn't help that Goneril and Regan are both backing him, which gives him like a false sense of power and ego right now. So he and Edmund and Albany are going to get into it a little bit. Okay.
Sir, you have shown today your valiant strength, and fortune lead you well. You have the captives who are the opposites of this day's strafe. I do require them of you, so to use them as we shall find their merits and our safety may equally determine.
Sir, I thought it fit to send the old and miserable king to some retention and appointed guard, whose age had charms in it, whose title more, to put the common bosom on his side, and turned our impressed lances in our eyes, which do command them. With him I sent the queen, my reason all the same, and they are ready tomorrow, or at further space, to appear, where you shall hold your session. At this time we sweat and bleed. The friend hath lost his friend, and the best quarrels in the heat are cursed by those that feel their sharpness. The question of Cordelia and her father requires a fitter place.
Sir, by your patience, I hold you but a subject of this war, not as a brother.
That as we list to grace him, methinks our pleasure might have been demanded ere you had spoke so far. He led our powers, bore the commission of my place in person, the which immediacy may well stand up and call itself your brother.
Not so hot. In his own grace he doth exalt himself more than in your addition.
In my rights, by me invested, he compeers the best.
Thou were the most if he should husband you.
Jesters do oft prove prophets.
Holla, holla, that eye that told you so looked but a squint.
Lady, I am not well, else I should answer from a full-flowing stomach. General, take thou my soldiers, prisoners, patrimony, dispose of them, of me, the walls are thine. Witness the world that I create thee here, my lord and master.
Okay, let's just pause for 1 second because it's getting intense between the sisters. Okay, so Edmund in his passage, Albany does acknowledge that he was, quite valiant in war, and he starts to tell Albany all of the things that he has done and refers to them as our impressed lances and our eyes, which do commend them. With him, I sent the queen. He also mentions that they may not receive a fair trial, but I decided to do this. And Albany says to him, Sir, by your patience, I hold you but a subject of this war, not as a brother. What does that mean?
Maybe it means like he still doesn't see Edmund as his like societal equal. Like he still like sees him as someone who doesn't have as much power as him.
Absolutely. Okay, now the fighting is over. He's like, "Okay, you did a great job, but we are not equals. I don't accept you in that way, and I need you to know that like we're not brothers. You are my subject. So don't get it twisted." And yeah, there are some class tensions here. He does not value him as an equal because he's not an equal. Okay? Yes, he is a subordinate. But that's kind of hard when Regan just says to him, she mentions that she's not feeling well, even though she wants to continue the fight with Goneril. She's not feeling good, right? She says, "Lady, I'm not feeling well." But she says, "General, take my soldiers, prisoners, patrimony, dispose of them. Of me," she tells us to Edmund, "the walls are thine." What is she doing by saying the walls are thine? You can look in the margins for a clue. Well, it says the walls are thine, everything is yours. So she is pledging that all of her power under Cornwall and herself are going to Edmund. So she is giving him the power by saying, the walls are thine. You have everything you want. Okay. Regan also, after Albany said that I hold you as a subject of this war, not as a brother, she doesn't appreciate that and she supports Edmund's actions. Okay. Now, Goneril is getting involved because the tensions between the two sisters are becoming, obviously more and more jealous, more and more intense. And she is, I think she's got plans, Regan this is, to marry Edmund. Okay. What's also kind of interesting when she says to Edmund that the walls are thine, this echoes the fool's prediction of the ill effects of giving your kingdom away. Like, do you think that Edmund would go to any lengths to protect you or to be loyal to you, Regan, if you give him anything? Like, he hasn't shown any kind of loyalty at all. So I'm not sure why she thinks that he would then be also loyal to her. So now they're going to talk a little bit about, like, are you going to enjoy him? Meaning, like, they want to know who's having sex with him. What are your plans? And they're talking about this right in front of Albany, which I would think would be awkward. And you can imagine how Edmund feels about this. This is giving him like a real sense of purpose, right? Jacob, I think that you said that you've got some experience with this, is relatable. So I can imagine how tense it would feel to have the emotions of two women that you've got to deal with. So let's find out what happens here.
Mean you to enjoy him?
Albany? Oh no, did Albany die? Okay, the let alone lies not in your goodwill.
Nor in thine, Lord.
Half-blooded fellow, yes.
Let the drum strike and prove my title fine.
Stay yet, hear reason. Edmund, I arrest thee on capital treason, and in thy attaint this gilded serpent.
Oh, miss, I'm sorry, I'm back, miss.
Okay, perfect. So you can carry on from line 85.
Okay, for your claim, fair sister, I bear it in the interest of my wife. This she is subcontracted to this lord, and I, her husband, contradict your banes. If you will marry, make your loves to me. My lady is bespoke.
An interlude.
Thou art armed, Gloucester, let the trumpet sound. If none appear to prove upon thy person thy heinous and manifest and many treasons, there is my pledge. I'll make it on thy heart. Ere I taste bread, thou art in nothing less. Then I have here proclaimed thee.
Sick, oh sick.
If not, I'll never trust medicine.
Okay, good. So what's happening here? Okay, so first of all, while Goneril and Regan are fighting over Edmund, Albany is not having this at all. He is not going to allow Edmund, who he also calls half-blooded fellow. So going back to the idea that he is a bastard, there's no way that you're going to take Regan's part of the kingdom. It's not happening. And he also says, Edmund, I arrest thee, which using this second person pronoun expresses his contempt for Edmund. I arrest thee on capital treason. Okay. It's not going to happen. He's got contempt for him for his social inferiority, that he is involving himself more than he should. And it wasn't probably smart to have an affair with Albany's wife. Like, that didn't really work out well. Okay. So there's a lot of images coming up of very distorted perception of people as we see, and as he's arresting him and Goneril is saying that this is a farce, he throws down a glove. Now, in Shakespeare's times, when you throw down a glove, what does that mean?
It means a fight.
Yeah, like you are, absolutely. You're challenging someone to a duel. Okay. And Regan in the background says, sick, oh, sick. And Goneril in an aside, and Samantha, you did that very sneaky. I like that. If not, I'll never trust medicine. What does she mean by that?
She poisoned Regan.
She sure did. Well, that's one way to get rid of a rival, is to poison your sister so you can have her man. So now Edmund is also going to accept the challenge.
There's my exchange. What in the world he is that calls me traitor, villain like he lies. Called by the trumpet, he that dares approach. On him, on you, who not? I will maintain my truth and honor firmly.
Alright, trust to thy single virtue for thy soldiers. All levied in my name, having my name took their discharge.
My sickness grows upon me.
She is not well, convey her to my tent. Come hither, Herod. Let the trumpet sound and read out this.
Sound trumpet.
If any man of quality or degree within the list of the army will maintain upon Edmund, supposed Earl of Gloucester, that he is Manford traitor, let him appear by the third sound of the trumpet. He is bold in his defense. Sound. Again, again.
Okay, now it's basically, if anybody here is going to, it's got to be a knight of a proper status, is going to make any accusations against him, he's got to do it by the end of these three trumpets. And then guess who shows up in full knight's regalia, and he is looking like he is going to take him on. Okay, so Edgar armed with a trumpet before him.
Ask him his purposes, why he appears upon this old heron trumpet.
What are you, your name, your quality, and why are you answer this present summons?
No, my name is lost. By treason to fair none, and cankerbid. Yet am I noble as adversary. I come to cope.
Which is our adversary?
What's he that speaks for Edmund, Earl of Gloucester?
Himself. What sayest thou to him?
Draw thy sword, that if my speech offend the noble heart, thy arm may do thee justice. Here's mine. Behold, it is the privilege of mine honors, my oath, and my profession. I protest, malgré thy strength, place, youth, and eminence. Despite thy victor's sword and fire new fortune, thy valor and thy heart, thou art a traitor, false to thy gods, thy brother, and thy father, conspirant against this high illustrious prince. and from the extremest upwards of thy head to the descent and dust below thy foot. A most toad-spotted traitor, say thou no. This sword, this arm, and my best spirits are bent to prove upon thy heart, whereto I speak, though lies.
Okay, so what's important here is that Edgar, he shows up, he's going to take the duel, most likely. Why does he come dressed as a knight? Well, I mean, I think this is the idea of like the clothing imagery. When Lear recovers, they put on new clothes and he's reclaimed, he's redeemed. Edgar like can't come and defend himself dressed as a mad beggar. He has to come as a knight. Now, why? This goes back to the Fool, I think, talking a little bit about Merlin, Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, and why is knighthood something that's so valued? Well, probably because of their honors, like loyalty, their professionalism, they're virtuous. So that's why he's got to come, and he's going to take Edgar on by showing all of these virtues that he has. Sorry, to take Edmund on, that he is this virtuous knight that's going to come to restore order. Okay? So is it physical manifestation of Edgar getting his status and honor back? Yes. So he can't show up as Tom O'Bedlam. He would not be taken seriously. He wouldn't be able to get anywhere near Albany. But he's coming as a knight, and he is going to reclaim his proper status. So he's got to be dressed accordingly. All right? And he also says that basically, in spite of all of these, you know, your strength, your eminence, you are false to thy gods, thy brother, and thy father. He calls him a toad-spotted traitor, and how unnatural he is. You lie. Okay, so they're going to fight. So Edmund.
In wisdom, I should ask thy name, but since thy outside looks so fair and warlike, and that thy tongue, some say, of breeding breathes, what safe and nicely I might well delay, by rule of knighthood I disdain and spurn, back do I toss these treasons to thy head, with the hell-hated lie o'erwhelm thy heart, which, for they yet glance by and scarcely bruise, the sword of mine shall give them instant way, where they shall rest forever. Trumpets, speak.
Okay, so yes, it is going to be a battle, but it seems like it's very fast. So they're fighting, and Edmund falls. Okay, so he is wounded.
Save him, save him.
This is practice, Gloucester. By the law of war, thou wast not bound to answer an unknown opposite. Thou art not vanquished, but cozened and beguiled.
Shut your mouth, dame, or with this paper shall I stop it. Ho, sir, thou worse than any name, read thine own evil. No tearing, lady, I perceive you know it.
Say, if I do, the laws are mine, not thine. Who can arraign me for it?
Most monstrous. Oh, knowest thou this paper?
Ask me not what I know.
Go after her. She's desperate. Govern her.
Okay, a couple of things. On line 50, why does Albany, after like Edmund has fallen, why does he say, save him, save him? Well, they want him alive because they want a confession from him. Okay, first and foremost. Now, Goneril says that he was cheated and deceived. We know that's not true. I mean, if you're going to cheat and be deceptive to get where you are, it's only fair that one can cheat you and deceive you later, at least I think. So Albany tells her to shut her mouth, and he's got the letter. Remember that he read after battle that Edgar gave him. So now he says, oh, monstrous, oh, knowest thy paper? Because she's trying to assert her position as queen, saying like, who are you going to get to arraign me? Okay. And because he knows that she was in on this plan to kill him. He sends someone to go after her. She's desperate, govern her. He knows that she is caught and doesn't want her to do anything bad before he can seek punishment. Okay, so she leaves and an officer does also. And Edmund, now you're bleeding and laying on the ground, okay? Just so you know.
What you have charged me with, that I have done, and more, much more, the time will bring it out. 'Tis past, and so am I. But what art thou that hast this fortune on me? If thou art noble, I do forgive thee.
Let's exchange charity. I am no less in blood than thou art, Edmund. If more, the more that hast wronged me. My name is Edgar, and thy father's son. The gods are just, and of our pleasant vices make instruments to plague us. The dark and vicious place where thee he got cost him his eyes.
Thou hast spoken right, 'tis true. The wheel has come full circle. I am here.
Me, me fate verigate de prophecy. Royal noblest, I must embrace thee. Lush sorrow split my heart. If I did hate thee or thy father.
Worthy prince,
Where have you hid yourself? How have you known the miseries of your father?
by nursing them, my lord. List a brief tale, and when this told, oh, that my heart would burst. The bloody proclamation to escape that followed me so near. Oh, our life's sweetness, that we the pain of death would hourly die, rather than die at once, taught me to shift into a madman's rags, to assume a semblance that very dogs disdained. And in this habit met my father with his bleeding rings, their precious stones new lost, became his guide, led him, begged for him, saved him from despair, never, O fault, revealed myself unto him, until some half hour passed, when I was armed, not sure, though hoping of this good success, asked his blessing, and from first to last told him my pilgrimage. But his flawed heart, I lacked too weak the conflict to support. 'Twas two extremes of passion, joy and grief, burst smilingly.
So what happened?
Edgar told his father about him, but due to his current health, he couldn't really handle it and he passed on.
Yeah, he died, but he died of like a feeling of immense joy because he was finally reunited with his son. And he said that, I couldn't reveal myself to him very quickly, but, when I did, his flawed heart, think about all of the stress he's been through lately, that he basically died of joy, like a heart attack, died of joy. Twixt two extremes of passion, joy, and grief burst smilingly. So, for all the trauma that Gloucester has gone through, I'm not saying that it makes us feel better, but I think on some level it does, that he was reunited with his good son and his good son could reveal himself to him, and that he died happy instead of in misery and depression. I feel like we should have seen that scene ourselves instead of hearing it secondhand. Well, not a bad point, but sometimes these things might not be depicted as effectively on screen, that maybe, hearing about it is more important than to seeing it. Would we have known, do you want to have like a scene of an old man dying under a tree and Edgar weeping? I don't know. There's a reason why Shakespeare didn't decide that it was going to be portrayed, but that we hear about it from Edgar, who is a reliable source. So we know that what he said was true. Okay. So let's go back to Edmund a little bit. Okay. Sorry. Before we're going to talk about Edgar. So they're talking about forgiveness. Okay. And Edmund, not knowing who this is, says, if thou art noble, I do forgive thee. So if you had noble intentions on killing me, I guess I will have to accept it. And they both forgive each other. And that's when Edgar reveals himself and says essentially that the gods are just because you are now punished for the sins that you committed to us, right? And Edmund realizes that his ill fate was self-induced, and that's why he is now at the bottom of the wheel. That the wheel has come full circle, right? He started at the bottom, he rose to power at the top, and then he is now at the bottom of the wheel again. Okay, so as sad as that was, there was a reveal, there was a blessing, there was forgiveness, and there was reunion of father and son. So we can at least be happy about that. Gloucester wronged Edmund and his mother, so he got punished. Same with Edmund and Edgar. I mean, you're not wrong. That's a good point, right? Everybody is punished. And that's, I think, part of the point that Shakespeare's trying to make too. Okay, so Edgar is like, Edmund is slowly dying. He's not dying yet. So let's find out what else occurs between them, because he is going to redeem himself just a little tiny bit.
His speech of yours hath moved me, and shall perchance do good. But speak you on. You look as you had something more to say.
If there be more and more woeful, hold it in, for I am almost ready to dissolve. Hearing of this.
This would have seemed a period to such as love not sorrow, but another, to amplify too much, would make much more, and top extremity. Whilst I was big in clamor, came there in a man, who having seen me in my worst estate, shunned my adored society, and then finding who it was that so endured, with his strong arms he fastened on my neck, and bellowed out, as he burst heaven, threw him on my father, told the most piteous tale of Lear and him that ever ear received, which in recounting his grief grew puissant, and the strings of life began to crack. Twice then the trumpet sounded, and there I left him tranced.
But who was it? Yes, who was it?
Kent, sir, the banished Kent, who in disguise followed his enemy king, and did him service improper for a slave.
Okay, so enter a gentleman with a bloody knife.
Help, help, oh, help.
What kind of help?
Speak, man.
What means this bloody knife?
This hot, it smokes. It came even from the heart of, oh, she's dead. Who's dead? Speak, man. Your lady, sir, your lady, and her sister, by her is poison, she confesses it.
I was contracted to them both, all three, now marry in an instant.
Here comes Kent.
Produce the bodies, be they alive or dead. This judgment of the heavens, it make us tremble, touches us not with pity. Oh, is this he? The time will not allow the compliment which weary manners urges.
Oh, we don't even have a Kent. Anybody want to be Kent?
Yes, I'll do it again.
Oh, that's okay, Jeffrey. You've got too many parts. Anyone? David, would you read Kent for me? Line 233.
Great thing of us for God speak, man. Where's the king and where's Cordelia? Seest thou this object, Kent?
Okay, so the bodies of Goneril and Regan are brought in, and let's go back to the very grim joke that Edmund states, kind of like the idea that all three of them are now married in an instant. What are they married to? Well, each other in death. Okay, Kent.
Yet Edmund was beloved, the one the other poisoned for my sake, and after slew herself.
Even so, cover their faces.
I pant for life, some good I mean to do, despite of mine own nature. Quickly send, be brief in it, to the castle, for my writ is on the life of Lear and on Cordelia. Nay, send in time.
Run, oh, run.
To who, my lord? Who has the office? Send that token of reprieve.
Well thought on. Take my sword, give it to the captain.
Haste thee for thy life.
He hath commission from thy wife and me to hang Cordelia in the prison and to lay the blame upon her own despair, that she forbid herself.
The gods defend her. Bear him hence a while.
Okay, so Edmund is taken away. Now let's talk a little bit about this. So as the bodies are brought in, if you never feel sorry for Edmund, maybe this is the one time that you do. It's up to you though. And so he sees these two dead women, the sisters, and he says, yet Edmund was beloved, the one the other poisoned for my sake and after slew herself. So like he says, after all, someone did love me. That was the one thing that he wanted this whole time, which was to be acknowledged and loved like the person that he is. And it was just this evil facade that he had because he didn't ever feel that. So like, how sad is that? But then like at what cost, right? So Edmund wants to do one good thing before he dies. So he says, basically, I wrote an order of execution on the life of Lear and Cordelia. So take my sword as a token and run to the prison and try to stop it from happening. So what he was going to do is he was going to have Cordelia hanged, but make it look like she committed suicide. Go back a couple of scenes and Lear said, like, if anyone comes between us, it's going to be like, I'm going to bring vengeance from hell. So now this next scene, I want you to imagine that he walks into this scene in front of everybody and he's carrying the body of Cordelia in his arms. So like you have to imagine father and child, even like burying your child, how unnatural that is, right? It's supposed to be the children that bury their parents. And he comes in and he's like howling like an animal because he is in so much anguish just after he got his blessing from, or he gave his blessing, he got forgiveness, they were going to have time together. Now that's been taken away from him again. How much more can he endure? Okay, so Lear, when you're reading it, you need to know that you are in like extreme distress.
Howl, howl, howl. Oh, you are men of stones. Had I your tongues and eyes, I'd use them so that heaven's vault should crack. She's gone forever. I know when one is dead and when one lives. She's dead as earth. Lend me a looking glass, if that her breath will mist or stain the stone. Why then she lives?
Or image of that horror.
Fall and cease.
This feather stirs. She lives. If it be so, it is a chance which does redeem all sorrows that ever I have felt. Prithee, away.
This noble Kent, your friend.
A plague upon you, murderers, traitors all. I might have saved her. Now she's gone forever. Cordelia, Cordelia, stay a little. Ha! Why, what is it thou sayest? Her voice was ever soft, gentle and low, an excellent thing in woman. I killed the slave that was a hanging thee.
'Tis true, my lords, he died.
Did I not, fellow? I have seen the day with my good biting falchion. I would have made them skip. I am old now, and these same crosses spoil me. Who are you? Mine eyes are not of the best. I'll tell you straight. This is a dull sight. Are you not Kent? He's a good fellow, I can tell you that. He'll strike and quickly too. He's dead and rotten. I'll see that straight. You are welcome hither. Aye, so I think.
He knows not where he says, and vain is it that we present us to him.
Very bootless.
Edmund is dead, my lord.
That's but a trifle here. Your lords and noble friends know our intent. What comfort to this great decay may come, shall we be applied for us, that we will resign. Join the life of this old majesty, to him our absolute power. You your rights, with boot in such addition to our honors that have more than merited. All friends shall taste the wages of their virtue, and all foes the cup of their deservings. OCC.
And my poor fool is hanged. No, 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 life. Why should a dog, a horse, a rat have life, and thou no breath at all? Thou'lt come no more. Never, 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 never. Pray you, undo this button. Thank you, sir. Do you see this? Look on her. Look her lips. Look there, look there.
He faints. My lord, my lord. Look up, my lord. He is gone, indeed.
Bear them from hence. Our present business is General Wow. Friends of my soul, you twain, rule in this realm, and the gourd state sustain.
The weight of this sad time we must obey. Speak what we feel, not what we ought to say. The oldest have borne most. We that are young shall never see so much, nor live so long.
Okay, and scene. So let's go back to the scene where Lear is howling and he comes in with his daughter in his arms. Okay, and he mentions how she's dead as earth. She's gone forever. I know when one is dead and one lives. But then he says, lend me a looking glass, which like a mirror. If that her breath will miss or stain this stone, why then she lives. And Kent says, is this the promised end, like the apocalypse? As if Lear's reaction to this is going to be like end of times, right? If you look at the divine right of kings, that this trauma on the king would create an apocalypse. Okay, now Lear, you have to imagine this is now probably he's in the midst of madness. This is completely overwhelming to him. And so he has a feather that he's holding to her lips, and he says, the feather stirs, she lives. If it be so, if it is chance it does redeems her of that I have felt. So is this like wishful thinking? He's hoping that maybe she's still alive. Okay, then he plagues everyone. He calls everyone murderers, traitors. He also says that her voice was ever soft, gentle, and low, an excellent thing in woman. Well, I mean, what, so that you don't speak up? That's not necessarily a good thing, but it is in contrast to the sisters who obviously were very offensive in their treatment of him. Okay, now as he's holding Cordelia, Kent is trying to, I think, like gently distract him a little bit by saying, I think he's actually desperate that Lear acknowledges that Kent has been there the whole time. Okay, he says that from your first steps of difference and decay have followed your sad steps. That he's showing his loyalty, and he is really like desperate or anxious that Lear knows this. Okay. And Albany says, you know, I think it's useless to try to explain things to him. He's obviously preoccupied. And Edgar acknowledges that it's not worth it because he's beyond the point of rationalizing. So we find out Edmund is dead. Albany says that's a trifle, like no one really cares. That we're looking at the Great Decay, meaning Lear, his Great Decay. But to contrast this extreme decay and the death of everyone, it's Albany around lines 299 that starts to restore order, starts to put things back as they should. So to Edgar and Kent, he says, you to your rights with boot and such addition as your honors have more than merited. All friends shall taste the wages of their virtue, and all foes the cup of their deserving. So he's going to, restore positions and titles, etc. Then we go back to Lear. My poor fool is hanged. Now, this is one of those lines that scholars have looked into, okay? Poor fool, in the margins, it says a term of endearment. Is it a term of affection? Is it a reference to the other poor fool, meaning Lear's fool? Does he look at them as almost being like a similar character? So is it a tribute to that? That's up for interpretation. Okay. And also in the moment that he is looking at her one more time and he says, pray you undo this button. So he's having that anxiety attack yet. He feels a sense of suffocation. Remember back when he referenced hysterica passio way back when? Okay. And he says, look on her, look, her lips, look there, look there. So he thinks that her lips are, maybe pink or red and she's not dead yet. And he dies thinking she's alive. So is that the one moment of like reconciliation that Lear gets, that he dies of joy thinking that Cordelia is still alive? That's up again for you to interpret. Kent says, vex not his ghost. Okay, so let him pass, let his ghost move on and let him be. That he has been on the rack of life, which is a medieval torture, what would it be called? Like a torture device, where you were on the rack and you were just stretched until your arms and legs popped out of their sockets. So he's been on the rack of the tough world, stretched him out long enough to let him die in peace. Like just leave him to go. Okay, so then Albany is, trying to restore order. And then Kent has this very kind of bizarre line that you've got to read into. So Kent says, I have a journey, sir, shortly to go. My master calls me. I must say no. If you look in the margins, it says the journey is to another world, that his master calls him. Well, first of all, I think we have to say, like, who is his master? And if we are interpreting this as being Lear is his master, how would you interpret this line? What is he suggesting?
That he's going to kill himself?
Perhaps. So if his whole life has been dedicated to Lear and being loyal to him, and now that Lear is gone, is Kent going to kill himself to, as Marco just said, join his master in death? Perhaps. Another way that you could read into it is that he needs to look for a new master. If God is his master, maybe he needs to go on a journey elsewhere. But a lot of people point back to the concept that perhaps he is going to commit suicide now that Lear is gone. He is going to, in faith and in loyalty, also kill himself. And I think that it's important that Edgar gives the last lines in the scene to show that he has also going to restore order. But also the idea of saying what we feel, not what we ought to say. So if we rewind to the love contest, he holds true to that. You should say what is true in your heart, not what you should say. And the oldest hath borne most, we that are young shall never see so much nor live so long. The idea that maybe the old, like Lear, move on, and it's time now. It's a world of young people, and they move forward that way. So a few questions in the chat. Okay. So Tanya wants to know, okay, which line does it announce that Gloucester dies from extreme joy and shock? So Act 5, Scene 3, if you look at line 197, 198, twixt two extremes of passion, joy, and grief, burst smilingly. And burst smilingly means he died of joy. So that is it. Now I think you could maybe understand why this is one of the more tragic plays, because there's an awful lot of suffering for Lear. Who's alive at the end? Great question. A couple officers, a couple gentlemen, Albany and Edgar. That's it. And of course, like the rest of the people who lived in the kingdom, but all of the characters are dead. The fool, we don't know what happens to the fool. As a side note, that last line where I mentioned my poor fool is hanged, I did see one interpretation of King Lear a long time ago, and it was in direct reference to this line, that because the fool just leaves mysteriously, we don't know like where he goes, why he leaves when he does. I think he leaves because his messages are no longer connecting to Lear anymore. So his purpose is therefore redundant. He doesn't need to be there because Lear isn't understanding him. That I've seen depictions where the fool is actually like hanged. The idea that he was somehow captured by maybe Edgar or Cornwall Regan and was hanged, and that is in reference to my poor fool is hanged. But it's all speculation, it's poetic license, it's interpretation. We don't know what happens to the fool other than his purpose is no longer needed because at that moment Lear has gone totally mad. I mean, anything is possible. I don't know if there's any evidence that he hanged himself. So that's why I caution speculation. All we know is most likely he was played by the same character who is Cordelia. So that's probably one reason why he doesn't show up, because in the next scene, Cordelia is there. Could he be a symbol of Lear's conscience? Like his moral compass? I mean, in some ways, I think you could look at him as a representation of his conscience, maybe of his awareness. I think ultimately the fool is an ironic teacher, because you wouldn't think that a joker, a court jester, someone whose job it is to just be entertainment, would end up being the one that really defines Lear's role and all of the bad decisions that he makes. So you could look at him in that way, yes. I just don't know if we can say that the fool is dead. I think that his purpose is no longer needed, therefore he leaves. That's also a classic Shakespeare thing that he does, where if a character is no longer needed, they just exit and there's no explanation as to where they go. So I think that you could say, I don't know about being dead, but that he has become, because Lear is delusional, he's no longer needed. So he doesn't need to be there. What would he do for the remainder of the play? Like sit by Lear's side and try to tell jokes? Like he's beyond that. So I just think he's not needed. And comments about Edgar, he did not deserve any of Edmund's actions. No, he did not. The only thing that we could say that maybe makes us feel better is that he has righted the wrongs at the end. What if the fool was in Lear's head? Well, now you're getting into Inception. The fool was a real character. And if okay, so hold on. If the fool's in Lear's head, then how would all the other characters know him and see him? So I don't know about that. And what do you mean the same for Cordelia? That Cordelia is in Lear's head?
No, Miss, I meant
Yeah,
that.
they share too much of a presence in the story to be an illusion, but that could just be me.
An illusion?
Like they're too much. They have so much of a presence in the story that I doubt they're just an illusion.
Right, right. Okay, so Jacob's making an interesting point. What if everything is in Lear's head? I think that's part of the problem, that Lear had too many things in his head. But I do believe that those characters were real. Because if not, then that's a whole other genre of, okay, now we're going, yeah. And now I'm in an alternate reality. Okay, like, did we even read this play? Am I even here? Are you all having an existential crisis? Because that's what it sounds like. You know, maybe we are living in Lear's head. Maybe we are living in a snow globe on Lear's shelf, and he's just shaking us up every once in a while. You know, I just don't have all those answers, people. I can't say. Don't know. But I will say the evaluations are real, at least in my universe. So speaking of evaluations, let's try to figure this out. Okay. So I believe that there are 2 people that are absent on Friday. Is that correct? Okay. Is everybody okay with having your presentations due on Monday and your creative assignment due on Monday also?
Yes.
Okay, both due on Monday. All right, excellent. So what that means is, very unlucky for you. Well, that just means you're going to have to use your class time wisely. So this is what we're going to do. Tomorrow at the beginning of class, I'm going to do my very best tonight. If my little demons cooperate with me, I'm going to be able to type up the Act 5 notes and get those posted for you. The second thing that we're going to do is we'll take up the Act 4 and Act 5 questions, because I know, my little demons, my children, I affectionately refer to them as little demons because they're kind of bad. So we'll go over Act 4 and 5 questions. So please make sure that you do those. So tomorrow we'll take up the questions, we'll post the Act questions, and then I will give you, no, you are not demons. You're lovely. They are demons, my demons. So I guess if they're demons, they came from me, somehow I'm also in that category with them. So we will do our group work, and you'll have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I'll give you work periods, whether it's group work, you want to spend some time. If you've figured out what you're going to do with your group, then you can have some time to work independently on your creative assignment. So I'm going to give you these next days to work in your groups, but that I really need for you to understand that if I'm giving you 3 days of class time, that is, do the math on that one, David. How many hours is that? I think it's 7.5 hours of class time. I require 7.5 hours worth of work that I see on Monday. Okay?
Miss,
Yes.
can you create breakout rooms?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
Absolutely.
that would help, so we can like all discuss what we want to do over call, because if we're just typing in the doc, that's going to take a while. So.
Oh no, for sure, for sure. That we'll have that set up for tomorrow. Today, for the remainder of class, I'm going to give you guys time to work asynchronously, meaning that you can, work on your questions, get Act 4 and 5 questions done. If there's any, final notes you want to make on the play, you can do that. And as of tomorrow, we'll take up the questions. I'll get you into your breakout groups. Tomorrow would be a really good time for you guys to focus in and brainstorm what you're going to do for your presentation, come up with, maybe work together to figure out a thesis, and then